On January 18th, 1976, the world witnessed something that made the title, "There Will Never Be Another Jack Lambert," feel inevitable. A single explosive act in Super Bowl X, where a 23-year-old linebacker turned a Dallas taunt into a Pittsburgh creed. Jack Lambert didn't just enforce the rules of football, he rewrote the code of intimidation, leading the Steel Curtain in an era when violence and victory walked hand in hand. From a toothless kid no college wanted, to the most feared player in NFL history, his journey upended every expectation and left a permanent mark on the game. But how did a skinny, overlooked recruit from Mantua, Ohio, become the symbol no quarterback dared challenge? And why does no one since even come close? Mantua, Ohio was the kind of place where winter stuck around and everyone learned to work before they learned to drive. Jack Lambert's earliest memories were shaped by the weight of hay bales, the scrape of barn doors, and the steady voice of his mother. After his parents split, she took on the job of raising him alone, keeping a close eye as he split his days between her house and his grandfather's farm. Out here, chores weren't a punishment, they were survival. Feeding cows before dawn, hauling buckets through mud, fixing fences with hands that ached but never quit. Neighbors still talk about the way Jack, all long limbs and sharp elbows, moved with a kind of restless energy. He wasn't big, barely 185 pounds as a teenager, tall but lean, always a head taller than the other kids, but never wider. What he lacked in bulk, he made up for with a stubborn refusal to give in. High school gave him his first taste of real adversity. During a basketball game, a stray elbow shattered his front teeth, 4 gone in an instant. Most kids would hide, maybe get them fixed and try to forget. Jack did the opposite. He wore that gap-toothed grin like a warning, a badge that said pain wouldn't change him. Coaches and classmates started to notice the way he tackled problems and people with the same single-minded drive. He played quarterback and defensive back, but his body never matched the mold recruiters wanted. Too skinny, too raw, too much of a question mark for the big schools. The letters never came. So he kept working. The farm, the football field, the weight room, each day adding a layer of strength no one could measure on a scale. His mother, who had seen hard times before, told friends that Jack was built for storms. By graduation, he had learned to expect nothing and fight for everything. The local paper called it farm boy strength. Jack just called it life. Years later, when the world saw him snarl through a helmet, missing teeth and all, they saw intimidation. But in Mantua, they remembered a kid who learned early that toughness wasn't about size or talk. It was about getting back up, every single time, no matter what. Jack Lambert arrived at Kent State as a long shot, a skinny kid with a chip on his shoulder and no set position. Coaches first tried him at defensive end, hoping his speed and stubbornness could make up for what he lacked in size. But in 1972, when the starting middle linebacker quit mid-season, head coach Don James saw something others missed. He moved Lambert to the heart of the defense, a decision that changed everything. Lambert's first games at middle linebacker showed a rare instinct. He read plays before the snap, shot gaps, and covered ground sideline to sideline. Practice reports from that fall talk about his motor, the way he called out adjustments, and how quickly teammates started looking to him for direction. That year, Kent State found itself in uncharted territory. With Lambert calling signals, the Golden Flashes surged through the Mid-American Conference. In a game against Toledo, he racked up 29 tackles, a school record that still stands. Teammates Nick Saban and Gary Pinkel, both future coaching legends, later said Lambert's intensity changed the team's culture. He wasn't the biggest player on the field, never more than 217 pounds, sometimes closer to 200, but his anticipation and drive made him impossible to block. Kent State rode that wave all the way to its first MAC title. The reward, a trip to the Tangerine Bowl, the program's first major bowl appearance. Lambert dominated on the biggest stage, earning defensive MVP honors and leaving scouts scrambling for tape. Over his college career, he piled up 593 tackles and left behind a blueprint for what a linebacker could be: fast, fearless, relentless. By the time his jersey was retired in 1977, Lambert had become a campus legend. The kid who was too small for the big schools had turned himself into one of the most feared defenders in college football. Pro scouts still worried about his frame, but no one questioned his heart. The leap from overlooked recruit to centerpiece of a championship defense set the stage for everything that came next. The 1974 NFL Draft rewrote the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. 4 names: Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Mike Webster, and Jack Lambert would all end up in Canton. But when the Steelers called Lambert's name with the 46th pick, most draft analysts shrugged. The scouting reports all said the same thing: too lean, too wiry, not enough bulk to survive at middle linebacker. At 6'4" and barely 220 pounds, he looked more like a basketball forward than the anchor of a defense. But Pittsburgh's front office saw something different. They trusted the Kent State tape, saw the instincts, the raw aggression, the way he ran a defense like a field general. Opportunity arrived before the first snap. Starting linebacker Henry Davis went down with an injury in the preseason, and suddenly the rookie from Mantua was thrown into the middle of the NFL's toughest defense. Lambert never looked back. He played every snap with a kind of reckless certainty, chasing ball carriers sideline to sideline, barking out calls, and setting a tone that even the veterans respected. By October, it was clear the Steelers hadn't just found a stopgap. They'd found the heart of their defense for the next decade. Lambert's rookie season became legend almost overnight. He led the team in tackles, outworked everyone in the film room, and played with a ferocity that set him apart even on a roster full of future Hall of Famers. The league took notice. At the end of 1974, he was named Defensive Rookie of the Year, a rare honor for a middle linebacker, and a sign that the doubters had missed the mark. The Steelers rode that rookie energy all the way to Super Bowl IX, where Lambert's presence helped shut down the Minnesota Vikings and deliver Pittsburgh's first championship. In just one season, the kid who was once too skinny for college football had become a champion, and the NFL was on notice. The Steelers' gamble had paid off. Jack Lambert was here to stay. By the fall of 1976, the Pittsburgh Steelers looked nothing like champions. Terry Bradshaw was sidelined with a busted wrist. The offense sputtered, and the team, fresh off 2 Super Bowl wins, sat at 1-4. The city grumbled. Headlines called the dynasty dead. Inside the locker room, Jack Lambert's voice cut through the gloom. He didn't care about excuses. He didn't care about pity. He wanted every man on defense to play like their jobs were on the line, and they did. What followed became the stuff of NFL legend. Over the next 9 games, the Steelers' defense, with Lambert as its heartbeat, unleashed a run that's still talked about in hushed tones. 5 shutouts, only 28 points allowed. Opponents crossed the 50-yard line and found nothing but pain. Lambert, prowling the middle, racked up 145 tackles and pounced on 8 fumbles. Teammates later said his pregame speeches left them shaking, part threat, part promise. He demanded more, and then delivered it himself, flying sideline to sideline, barking out assignments, daring anyone to test his turf. The transformation wasn't just about numbers. The Steelers started playing angry. They knocked out running backs, blanked playoff contenders, and turned every Sunday into a test of will. Reporters called it the impossible comeback. Coaches called it survival. Lambert called it football. By season's end, the Steelers had rattled off 9 straight wins and punched their ticket to the playoffs. Lambert was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year, the first Steeler ever to claim the honor. For Pittsburgh, he wasn't just a linebacker. He was a force of nature, the man who refused to let the season die. In a league built on intimidation, nobody did it better. Bud Carson saw possibilities that most defensive coaches of the era ignored. In a league built on brute force, Carson wanted speed, disguise, and adaptability. And at the heart of it all was Jack Lambert. Unlike the classic linebackers who planted themselves in the middle and waited for the run, Lambert learned to drift, drop, and cover ground that didn't belong to anyone else. Carson's scheme, a proto-Tampa 2 before the term ever existed, let Lambert play as both the hammer and the net. One snap, he'd be blitzing the A-gap. The next, he'd float back 20 yards, reading the quarterback's eyes, baiting mistakes. Numbers tell only part of the story. Lambert finished his career with 1,479 tackles and 28 interceptions. Numbers that stand out even today. But it was the way he did it that changed the position forever. Receivers crossing the middle found no safe haven. Tight ends, once afterthoughts in passing games, suddenly became targets for Lambert's long reach and anticipation. Running backs who slipped through the line met a linebacker who could tackle at full sprint, never losing leverage. The true test came in January, under the brightest lights. Super Bowl 13, Cowboys against Steelers, a game that swung with every possession. Lambert's fingerprints were everywhere. Timely tackles, adjustments at the line, a presence that forced Roger Staubach to think twice before testing the middle. When the Steelers needed a stop late, it was Lambert calling the signals, shifting teammates, and shutting down Dallas's final push. Pittsburgh walked away with a 35-31 win and a third title. A year later, the dynasty needed one more act. Super Bowl 14 against the Rams, the score tight in the fourth quarter. With the Rams threatening, Lambert dropped into coverage and snatched a game-sealing interception, ending Los Angeles' last hope. 4 rings in 6 years. Through each run, Lambert's versatility and intelligence made Carson's defense possible. He wasn't just a product of the scheme, he was the reason it worked. In an era of giants, Jack Lambert played like a chess grandmaster with a linebacker's snarl. Jack Lambert's body rarely let him down. In 10 seasons, he missed just 6 games, a streak almost unheard of for a middle linebacker in the NFL's most punishing era. Coaches and teammates marveled at his pain threshold. Stories from the locker room tell of Lambert playing through sprains, bruises, and everything short of a broken bone. In one legendary afternoon against Cincinnati, Pittsburgh's stat crew credited him with over 30 tackles, a number that's become part of local football folklore, even if the official books never caught up. But the same drive that made Lambert indestructible also kept him on the field as his body began to betray him. In 1984, at age 32, he suffered a turf toe injury on the hard AstroTurf at Three Rivers Stadium. What sounded minor was anything but. The joint at the base of his big toe was so damaged, he could barely push off or change direction. Doctors tried therapy, special shoes, even injections, but the pain never left. Lambert played only 8 games that year before deciding he couldn't keep up with his own standard. In the spring of 1985, he retired. The Iron Man streak was over, not with a dramatic hit, but with a silent, stubborn injury no one saw coming. In August of 1990, Jack Lambert stood on the steps at Canton, flanked by legends and TV cameras, and delivered a speech that cut straight to the bone. He thanked the Rooneys, his coaches, and the city of Pittsburgh, then looked out over the crowd and said, "If I could start my life all over again, I would be a professional football player, and I would be a Pittsburgh Steeler." The applause echoed, but Lambert wasted no time with ceremony. "Let's get this done," he said at the podium, eager to step away from the spotlight as quickly as he'd entered it. The days after the ceremony brought a flood of offers, endorsements, interviews, television gigs, coaching jobs. Lambert turned them all down. His agent fielded calls from brands wanting his name, networks wanting his voice, but Lambert wanted none of it. He returned home to rural Pennsylvania, coaching youth baseball, fishing, and refusing to trade his privacy for fame. While other Hall of Famers built second acts in the public eye, Lambert chose silence. The legend only grew. In Pittsburgh and across the league, his refusal to play the celebrity game became part of his mystique. Proof that for Jack Lambert, football was never about the headlines. It was about the game, and when the game was over, so was he. Jack Lambert's shadow still stretches across the NFL. Modern linebackers study his tape not just for the hits, but for the way he read offenses, dropped into coverage, and made every inch of the field his territory. Defensive coordinators building the Tampa 2 scheme often point to the old Steelers film, where Lambert's range and instincts turned a rigid position into something dynamic. Analysts and former players, from Ray Lewis to Luke Kuechly, call him the toughest ever. Fox Sports polls still rank him atop the list of football's most intimidating figures. On Sundays in Pittsburgh, no one wears number 58. The Steelers have never officially retired it, but everyone knows that jersey belongs to Lambert alone. Even as the league's rules changed and the game grew softer around the edges, his name comes up in every debate about grit, violence, and what it means to control the middle of the field. Some say he couldn't play in today's NFL, that his edge would be blunted by penalties and fines. Others insist his mind and heart would have made him a star in any era. The only thing everyone agrees on: there will never be another Jack Lambert. Across 146 NFL games, Jack Lambert recorded 1,479 tackles, 28 interceptions, and anchored the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl victories between 1974 and 1980. He was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1976 and entered the Hall of Fame in 1990. Yet, he declined media and coaching roles, deepening the mystique around his legacy. The facts show Lambert revolutionized the linebacker position with his speed, intelligence, and toughness, influencing modern defenses like the Tampa 2. Still, some questions remain, such as how his style would translate to today's NFL, or why he chose a life out of the spotlight after football. What is certain: his number 58 remains unofficially retired by Pittsburgh, and his impact is cited by Hall of Famers and coaches alike. There was Jack Lambert, and by every account, every record, and every memory, there will never be another.